Hi there, this is Jordan with SweetWater Pool and Spa in the Okanagan Valley. Today I'm going to be showing you how to replace a heater element on a Balboa M7 style heater. This is a VS series pack, but it'll apply to any BP series pack, really any Balboa control system. So first things first, we're going to go through the parts list, and it's pretty straightforward, but what you're going to need is a replacement heater element. You're going to need replacement gaskets for either side of the heater. And the tools that you're going to need are a pair of pump pliers, or an oil filter wrench also works as well. You're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver or a drill with a Phillips bit, a 1/4-inch box wrench, two 3/8 box wrenches, a 3/4-inch box wrench, and a tube of silicone lubricant. It's also a good idea to have some paper towel on standby, and a wire brush as well. It's also a good practice to wear gloves when you do something like this. So the first step is going to be shutting off the power at the GFCI breaker to the spa. Once you've verified the power is off to the spa, the next step is we're going to shut off water flow through the heater. So on different spas, it may look different, but there should be two valves, one on either side of the heater. It may be a gate valve like this. So this valve here is in the open position now, and we would want to close it like so. You may also have ball valves in your spa. Now this ball valve is open, as you can see, and if I turn it 90 degrees, it's now closed. Once you have water flow or water shut off to the spa, or water shut off to the heater, what we can do is we can remove the face of this control box here, the panel. So there's two screws on the top. This panel comes out. We'll put it to the side. And as you can see, this control system obviously has quite a few things going wrong with it, but we're just using it as a demonstration to show you how to replace this heater element. So first things first, again, you've shut off power at the GFCI breaker, and you've shut off both valves on either side of the heater. The next step is we're going to loosen the unions on either side. Again, you may need an oil filter wrench or a pair of pump pliers to do this properly. As we're doing this, the water in between either valve will drain out. If you're noticing that once you've shut the valves and you've opened this, that the water won't stop, that's a very good indication that the valve has failed and water is passing either the ball or the knife inside of the knife valve. Once we have both unions disconnected, we want to be careful to take out the old gaskets here. So again, you'll have one on either side. We're going to take these out and put them to the side. They'll be replaced once we've completed the element replacement. The next step is we want to remove the heater barrel from the control system. So first things first, we can disconnect the sensor wires. Now these sensors have a small push pin here on the top. So we're going to push down on that clip, and that'll disconnect one of the sensors. And we're just going to feed this back and through. And we'll disconnect the second sensor here. With both sensors disconnected, we can now disconnect the power to the heater here. On this particular heater, it has a 3/8 stud. So we're going to grab our two box wrenches here. And what we want to do is we want to hold this stud here. And the reason being is there's actually an epoxy seal on the heater element itself. So if you look at this diagram here, we'll see that we have the post that goes through, which is right here. And then we've got the bottom hex, which in this scenario is a 3/8 bottom hex. And then we've got the terminal nut on top. So what we want to do is we want to hold the bottom hex as we turn the terminal nut. And the reason being is if we don't hold that bottom hex and we try to turn the terminal nut, what will happen is it'll actually crack that epoxy seal. and that will it'll start to leak essentially. It's not a huge deal with the old element because we're going to be replacing it. But again, it's still a good practice to hold that. So again, we're going to set up the bottom hex here with our 3/8. I'm going to grab our other box wrench here, and we're going to loosen this off. With it loose, we can take off the rest of the terminal. On your control system, these copper leads here are going to stay solid. This control system here, as you can see, has failed completely. So this was actually replaced at another customer's house with a new control system due to this. However, again, on your spa, this will stay solid. So we've got the first terminal disconnected. We're now going to disconnect the second terminal. So again, holding that bottom hex, being careful not to crack that epoxy stud. We loosen off that terminal. And we've got that terminal nut off. And then now we've got that copper terminal there just holding. And you'll see we can just lightly lift up on these. If these get compromised in any way, if they get twisted, if they get torn, they should be replaced. However, if you're able to save them and they're still in good shape, then we just want to lift them up gently and we can proceed with the rest of the element replacement here. So the next step is going to be removing the heater barrel from the control system. On this system here, or on all Balboa systems, there's two 3/8 studs that hold that in there. So what we're going to do is just loosen those off. With them loose, you should be able to just take them out finger tight. And you don't need to take these all the way out because both of these metal pieces here are actually slotted. So with them loose, we'll be able to pull that heater barrel out. Now, with the heater barrel out, obviously if it's cold outside, you could actually bring this into your shop or inside of your house to do this. Now, what we want to do now is inspect the heater barrel itself, and we don't want to see any sort of corrosion or rust like we're seeing here. If it's all corroded and rusted out, there's a good chance that we've developed a pinhole or something inside of there that's compromised this barrel. If that's the case, then this barrel should be replaced in its entirety. Now, again, for the purposes of this video, we're going to be replacing this element on this barrel here. But like you can see, at some point it was leaking from the terminal connection here. If I were to see this on site, I would be recommending a replacement of the barrel rather than just the element. But again, for the purposes of this video, we're going to replace this to show you how. So, inside of here, you'll be able to see the element sitting inside of there. And you'll also see our two sensors inside of there as well. So you'll notice that we won't be able to get the element out unless we remove one of the sensors. It's going to be easiest to bring the sensor this way, closest to this stud. So we're going to remove this stud here. Now, it's very rare that these aren't finger tight or you aren't able to get them out by hand. With the sleeve over top here, the union disconnected, we can now pull the sensor out. And we can inspect this for any pinholes or anything small inside of there. Like you can see, the sensor is quite rusted out on the bottom. So while we're doing this, it may be a good idea as well to replace the sensors if you do see any rusting or anything like that inside of there. Now, the next step with our sensor removed, you'll notice that we'll be able to get that element through and past the sensor there. So what we want to do is we're going to loosen these two 3/4 inch nuts here, and those are referred to as our bulkhead nut. So to remove the bulkhead nut, again, it's a 3/4 inch I'm going to take that and turn it to the left to loosen it. With it loose, again, you should be able to do this finger tight, or just with your hands. Once you get the first one out, the second one may be a little bit sticky because it wants to drop down. And once we've got both of these bulkhead nuts out, the element will now drop down, and it's now inside of the heater barrel there. So the next step is we'll grab our screwdriver. If you have a long, skinny flathead, that may work as well too. And what we want to do is we just want to push that terminal of the old heater element down so it's not getting obstructed on here. Once it's been pushed down, bring it around, and then the heater element slides out. So, with the heater element out now, we would be able to kind of inspect and see exactly, what our point of failure is. Sometimes you'll see nothing. Sometimes you'll see, I've even seen it where the element itself is fractured. Up to, I've seen brand new elements fail internally. Now, this also gives us a good chance to take a look at what the element looks like. So we've got two O-rings here as well, and you can see these guys have been flattened over time. And then we can also inspect our heater barrel. So this is what I was saying before about the compromising of the heater barrel. You can see here we've got some pitting here. So again, for the purpose of this video, we are going to throw a new element in it. But if we saw anything like this that would compromise that seal and have water coming out of the heater element, we would be suggesting replacing the barrel itself. So the next step here is we want to clean up the surfaces where this new heater element is going to mate to. And we can do that with our wire brush here. So we're just going to clean that up. And get rid of all of that rust. And then same on the bottom here. We just kind of want to clean up that surface. And we want to be careful not to scratch or pull on this stud for the heater sensor. So again, we're just cleaning up that area where the new O-rings meet up. And this is important because sometimes these O-rings here on the elements can start to deteriorate and they'll leave a bunch of gunk inside of there. And that will compromise our seal on the new heater element. So with it all cleaned up, we'll go over it with a piece of paper towel here just to make sure we haven't left behind anything. And then normally what I do is I stick that in there. I'm going to grab our screwdriver and just clean up the inside edges of it here. You can see that there. Now, if you're on site, you may need a light to do this, but we just want to make sure, again, that there's no debris or anything left inside of there. And those mating surfaces look nice and clean. So we can unpackage our new heater element here. This is a HydroQuip 4 kilowatt titanium heater element. So we've got it open here. I can pull out our new element here. And you'll also be supplied with a little bag of goodies here. This bag will have a new bulkhead nut, as well as new terminal nuts and new O-rings. So, we'll pull out our new element here, and our bag of goodies. So first things first, we want to put our new O-rings on here. And what we'll do is we'll grab our tube of lubricant here. This is O-ring lubricant, manufactured by Lube Tube here. And this is again, a silicone-based lubricant. And we're just going to grab a pea-sized amount and massage it into the new O-rings here. And with them adequately lubricated, we're going to slide them over the terminal here and down into the O-ring seat. At this point, it's a good idea to wipe off your hands because they will be slick, and that will make everything else much more difficult. So again, with them seated in there, we can now bring our new heater element into the barrel. So as we bring it in, we want to bring it in kind of 90 degrees from where it needs to be. And looking through the top here, we're going to line up those terminals. We're going to take our screwdriver here, and we're going to gently bring it along the side and just twist the heater into position. This will now bring the terminals up to where we need them to be. And we'll start pulling the element into the system, or into the barrel rather. There we go. And once they start to peek through, we can throw the bulkhead nut on. And obviously we want to be careful not to cross-thread anything. And again, it may be easiest to start one. And you can see as I tighten that, it brings the other stud up. And we can start the second nut. So before we get anything really tight here, and we don't need anything incredibly tight, they need to be torqued to about 15 foot-pounds, which really isn't much. So what we want to do is we want to get our hand in there, and we want to make sure that the element isn't making contact with the barrel. As you saw with the old element, it was making contact with the barrel. For ideal flow-through, as well as preventing any obstructions in the heater, we want to make sure that it's up and out of the way of the barrel. So I'm going to reach in there with our hand and just hold the heater in the right position, which is centered in the barrel. And as I do that, you can see the studs come up, and we can tighten those down. So again, I'm still holding it with my left hand here as I tighten it with my right. And again, this is only about 15 foot-pounds, so not crazy tight by any means. Now, again, I was holding that with my left hand the entire time, and you can see we don't have the element contacting the barrel at all. So there's going to be no obstructions as water flows through there and into the rest of the system. So we've now installed our new heater element into this heater barrel. We can now reinstall or replace our heater sensors here. And those just drop in, the sleeve comes over top, and it tightens down. At this point, we are now ready to reinstall the heater barrel into the control system. So we want to just bring these 2 3/8 studs in, and we're going to guide them into that little crevice there. And we want to make sure that the heater barrel isn't twisted or anything like that before we tighten these down. Generally what I do is I just get them finger tight so it doesn't move on me. Then I do the heater terminals here, and then I'll tighten them down with the box wrench. So once we've got it seated inside of here, we can reconnect the heater terminal here, or terminals rather. Like you saw when we removed this, one of our terminals was compromised. So we'll only be reconnecting the one. On yours, obviously, you're going to reconnect both. Again, if these were compromised at all during the removal process or twisted or anything like that, they should be replaced. So when we reinstall the terminals, what we want to do is, this is where it's crucial that we hold that bottom hex while we tighten up the terminal nut. Because if we don't hold that bottom hex and we crank away on this terminal nut, we're going to end up breaking that epoxy seal here. And then once we get everything up and running, we're going to have water contacting the power terminal. So with these new heater elements, it's actually going to be a 1/4 inch bottom hex, and the terminal nut on the top is going to be the same 3/8. So we'll line up our bottom hex there to hold it, and we're going to set up the 3/8. Again, careful not to cross thread anything. You want to make sure everything's nice and smooth. With it started there, again, still holding that bottom hex, we'll grab our other 3/8 box wrench and we'll tighten this. As you're doing this, you want to be careful that your box wrench on the bottom hex isn't higher than the bottom hex. So if your box wrench on the bottom hex here is higher than the top of that, what's going to happen is as you tighten it down, you're going to get a full sense of tight, because as soon as you pull out that box wrench on the bottom hex, you'll have a small gap there. So we want to make sure that our bottom hex is not, or our box wrench is not above the bottom hex there. And we'll tighten this down. Now it's going to get to a point where it almost bottoms out. And that will be tight. Again, we don't want to crank away on this. We don't want to make this incredibly tight. What's crucial here is that we don't have any space where this terminal moves on this copper strap here. There's 240 volts, and depending on the size of the element, there could be upwards of 20 amps running through there. So if there is any spot where there's a gap or anything like that, what we'll have over time is arcing, and then you'll be ending up replacing the copper straps and the heater element again. So again, on your control system, you hook up the second terminal here, and then once we've got that done, we can reconnect our heater sensors back in the original position as they were. And with them connected, we can just give a very gentle tug to make sure that that clip's seated. And with those clips seated, we can now reconnect our water lines to the heater barrel here. Now, at the start of the video, I did recommend that we replace these gaskets. This is what a new gasket looks like. If your gasket is deteriorated around the inside or just compromised in any way, it's a great idea, a great time to replace these. Again, you would lubricate these with the O-ring lubricant, and they seat into the tailpiece here. And with them seated, we can now tighten up the union here. So once you've reconnected both of the water lines on either side of the heater, we can now open up our valves here And it's important that we do this prior to turning on the spa, because if we don't, there's a chance that the heater element inside of here will dry fire and compromise the new element. So we do want to have water in here prior to us firing up the tubs. With the valves open, we can now turn the spa back on and confirm that everything's up and running and operational. You can see our other videos on how to confirm your spa's heating, as well as our other videos on diagnostic for not heating. Again, my name is Jordan with SweetWater Pool and Spa in the Okanagan Valley here in BC, Canada. If you have any other questions or comments or anything like that, you can leave it in the comments section of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.